Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from whichever part of the world that you're watching from. And welcome to this World Water Week's talk show, which is all about exploring social innovation. In the next 20 minutes, we'll be talking about a business approach contributing towards the SDGs. Now, this talk show today is brought to you by Hans Grohe. My name is Hajar Yacoubi, and I'm very delighted to be your moderator for these next 20 minutes. So whether you're here with us in the room in Stockholm, or whether you're watching online from home, wherever you are in the world, a very warm welcome to you. And thank you so much for choosing to make this 20 minutes free to divulge further into this topic, because we have an important topic to discuss, because we're going to be talking about private sector leaders. We're going to be talking with them and how they're moving beyond the traditional business case of, perhaps a bit more short-term oriented corporate social responsibility into actual meaningful social innovation. What does it mean? How do you do that? How do you move beyond competition and sort of unite for a collective greater good that we all collectively need to work on? That's what we will be discussing today. And here to have that conversation with me are the following people. I'm very delighted to be joined by you. First of all, very warm welcome to Jessica Trejo, the Social Innovation Manager at Hans Grohe Group.
Thank you.
Nice to have you. Then we are also joined by Joseph Schmidt, Business Development Manager Innovation for Good at Kohler. Very good to have you in our midst as well.
Thank you.
And then in the middle, last but not least, we're also joined by David Berners, Director Head of Product Strategy and Investor Relations at Yunus Social Business. Good to be joined by you as well. Now, I already spoke a little bit about the topic of today, right? But I want to dive into that a little bit deeper, because it's quite interesting. When we talk about social innovation, why was it so important for you to bring this topic to the stage here in Stockholm, Jessica?
Thank you, Hajar. One of the 2 points, or 2 points that have actually, I have heard constantly throughout World Water Week, is one is this need for collective action in order to achieve the SDGs.
Yeah.
And the second one is the need for the private sector to step in order to close the gap. So these 2 points would answer the questions of the what and the why.
Right.
And what we want to present is an alternative how. A how in which the private sector is seen beyond just check writers, but also in which the private sector itself moves beyond this traditional approach of corporate social responsibility,
Right.
namely through social innovation, social business.
Yeah.
And there is already a lot of knowledge and a lot of experience,
Yeah.
not only on the panel, but also present at World War Week.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of start talking and learning from each other.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And I mean, I hear you mention this, right? That we need to move from traditional CSR to social innovation. Just maybe for the people that are listening in, I can imagine that you might be thinking, okay, what's the difference? And I don't know, David, coming from sort of like the epitome of like knowledge when it comes to social businesses, could you explain to us what the difference is then between CSR and social innovation?
Yeah, with pleasure. And thanks for inviting us to the stage. I'll start it this way. So I think the most essential thing to notice there is the word business. Actually, if you look at CSR, that can be a big bucket of a myriad of things, actually, right? From grant making or employees going and painting schools or cleaning the streets. There's a lot of things in this bucket, right? And here we're looking at a business approach that has 2 components to it, I think. The first one is, first of all, as it is a business, you need to think differently about it. So there is the notion of financial sustainability, there's the notion of growth, there's the notion of scale that comes into the room when you think about solving a problem in a business approach. And second, especially talking about corporations like you are, given we talk about business, the question evidently comes up, how does that business activity link to my core business activity, right? And that's the most powerful way of creating impact in my eyes, because then the whole knowledge and the whole assets and the know-how of these companies can be brought to the table when it comes to creating impact. Yeah. So that is exactly what we should have more, and I think that's the topic of today, right?
Yeah, I like this. So if I understand correctly, it's not just about sort of incrementally abiding by these sort of societal guidelines and sort of almost check marks, but you say that the very core of your business, through its business activities and operations, can can you address societal issues in that manner? So it really needs to come from the core. That's interesting. You already mentioned it. We have two businesses here on the stage. So I would actually like to just maybe be very concrete about that. When we talk about social innovation, maybe Joseph, I can start with you. Could you tell us more how that sort of ties into the business case of Köhler as well?
Yeah, happy to. Well, thank you so much for hosting us. It's wonderful to be here with Hans Grohe and Eunice Social Business. Kohler is innovation is a key part of everything we do, and it has been for over 150 years. Kohler started in Kohler, Wisconsin, in the United States, and it first started with a man named John Michael Kohler, and he took a horse trough and made it into an innovative bathing solution. And that culture of innovation has really permeated our business and driven our commercial enterprise as we move forward throughout the years. And we've taken that power and we've utilized it in a new business unit called Innovation for Good. And that's the business unit that I lead in the business development sector. And we utilize this innovation, this capacity to innovate in the lower levels of the sanitation ladder, which we're really excited about.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that also. And it sort of gives the first insight into how you're incorporating innovation there. And from Hans Grohe's perspective, Jessica, could you share some more?
Absolutely. And it's a similar approach as well, because for us as well, when you look into innovation, when you look into social, when you look into sustainability, those are topics that are not strangers to Hans Grohe.
Right.
This is also part of our core values.
Yeah.
However, the new changes in regulations, in the competitive landscape, in the customer trends, has brought new opportunities and also challenges. But specifically when you look into markets of the future, that has really made us questioning, okay, how can we use Hans Grohe competences and long years of experience into bringing, into enabling access to dignified hygiene, also in markets, which is the case of many of these markets of the future, in which you don't have infrastructure and which very large parts of the population are living under very particular circumstances.
Yeah, that's a really good point. How does one do that, and how do you go about it? I wanna ask something else, because I mean, I'm thinking about David's answer at the very beginning, right? Social innovation and how that is really about at the very core of your being, trying to address societal challenges, issues that need to be solved. There is, of course, also a lot of pressure in society for businesses to, work on these societal issues, these ecological topics. I want to ask the both of you, Jessica and Joseph, how do you make sure that sort of the work that you do, the social innovation that you embody, is truly impactful and not, if I would say it in a very flattened way, just a way to boost the image of Hans Grohe or of Kohler? Like, can you speak to that a bit?
Yeah, and this is, of course, one of the things that we face a lot in reality. And what I would like to say is, first of all, is the intention. So it's to understand very clearly for oneself, what's my intention when I go into this, for the company as well. And also, what is my intention that I want to communicate? Because I think we need to take accountability for what we communicate. And it's not only to communicate the nice things, but also the pitfalls. I would even encourage that.
Yeah.
And going back to the point that David mentioned, there has to be connection and coherence to what I already do.
Yeah.
And my third point would be, it has to be long-term. I've seen on the field a lot of very good intention, but very short-minded actions concretely in the topics of social and environment that have created more damage than actually the benefit it was intended.
In what way?
When you actually just want to do kind of like a very short campaign that will make you look good, without really understanding what is the larger scale, what is the impact in the whole system, and in the long run. That's when the problems backlash. And that's why also a lot of the good actions that have been taken by certain private sector, they are unfortunately kind of played down because of this kind of incidents.
Because they're afraid that when it gets into the public eye too much, it can also backlash. In that sense. That's an interesting dynamic in a way, actually, because you would also want to, if it's very substantial and if it's very, very significant, then you'd actually like it to have as much platform as you can give it, because then otherwise people can perhaps take from it. But thanks for sharing that. Joseph, from Kohler's perspective?
Yeah, Jessica makes some excellent points. And at Kohler, innovation is the heart of everything we do. And I think a great example of that is our iPrize competition, where we invite 38,000 global associates to raise their hand and innovate both within our commercial business, but also in our social business, Innovation for Good. and it's an internal pitch competition where they get the opportunity to get in front of leadership team and say, we want to innovate in this specific area. And one of the products of that is our cleanse hand washing solution, which we actually have here at World Water Week.
Yeah.
It's a low-tech, low-cost option, hands-free for people to wash their hands.
Yeah.
And by utilizing our associates' passion, and that's a cultural drive here at Kohler, where we really can harness all that power and drive output. So it's wonderful to see that it's not just an outward-facing, we're invested in innovation. It's actually associated deep. I mean, it's really something that we all care about.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much for sharing. David, if you listen in on the answers given by Jessica and Joseph, does that align with what you sort of envision when it comes to social innovation? How are you listening in on the conversation?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the most powerful initiatives that we have seen were actually the ones that were embedded very closely in the business activity, the core business activity, right? Because you have a larger set of assets and knowledge that you can leverage like this. But most importantly, also, you have the buy-in of the shareholders of a company, because these companies work a bit differently than other types of companies, like NGOs, for instance, would work, right? So you have shareholders to take care, you have profitability to take care of. And when you can make of these initiatives sense to a shareholder, maybe as a long-term investment into accessing new markets or becoming more competitive or becoming more compliant, right?
Because that's a difficult thing sometimes, right? I mean, companies are on the one hand the big responsibility, because it's not just the outside world that's impacting them, they're impacting the outside world too. But then on the other hand, they are in a constant state of survival, dealing with shareholders, with indeed benchmarks, targets that need to be met. Indeed, I think you were alluding to how to overcome that.
So if you take a step back and you look at the company, right? What does a company do? It is actually trying to solve some kind of need.
Right.
Let's say need, which can coincide with a problem in the society, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it does, sometimes it's not. I would say there's some companies that solve needs that are not really a problem. But
they create needs, is what one could say.
To solve that need, what does a company do? It mobilizes resources. It mobilizes a talent, capital, and intellectual, let's say, property or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So, and if you look at the world that is changing, we have paradigm change right now in the world, where we see that this resources set is changing.
Yeah.
So you have more and more investors that say we want to invest into sustainable businesses, right? So there's pressure coming from that resource perspective.
True.
You have talent that is more and more difficult to attract in aging populations, especially in Northern America and the Western world.
Yeah.
So how do you attract the talent? And this can make a real sense to them. So there's a consciousness in the younger generations about that.
Yeah, even terms like conscious quitting, I think is what it's called.
Exactly, conscious quitting. And then you have, and at the end you have the clients on the regulators, which all put pressure on you to be there. So it is actually a real response for survival and a long-term thinking about how I can persist as a business, solving a need that hopefully also solves an issue. Yeah.
That's interesting. So you're basically saying actually we need this paradigm, this mentality shift, where we start to see that actually in order for you to ensure financial continuity, you won't retain a social license to operate if you're not actually really truly at the very core of your operations tackling these issues. I like that. That's a good case to make. I want to mention one other thing, which to me, when I was preparing for this session, I found that so inspiring and remarkable, is that Hans-Go and Köhler, you're sort of like operating in the same market, and you're sitting here together as what one could say competitors, but yet you're sitting here together to share insights, talk about this topic, really collaborate when it comes to I always call it the greater good, the issues that we as a humanity are facing, and we know how impeding and pressing they are. Can you talk to that a little bit more? Because I find it interesting. How do we make sure that we have this collaboration when it comes to also water-related issues altogether? Maybe, Joseph, would you like to go first?
Yeah, happy to. And I think David makes some really great points about stakeholders and KPIs that we have to hit as a business. Yeah. The thing that's unique about Kohler Company is we're actually a privately owned company. So we can operate in a slightly different way than most companies with shareholders. Right. So we do still have like key stakeholders, but we're a little bit different. Right. We have a global commitment to sharing our output. We put a global impact report out that's really excellent. I recommend you take a look at that. But as far as partnerships go, we're only as strong as our partners.
Right.
As you mentioned, the wash sector specifically, it's a global need.
Yeah.
It's something that we're going to need a lot of different players from a technology perspective
Yeah.
to assist in creating opportunities.
Yeah.
And it's great to see some of our partners are actually here in the audience.
Yeah.
Wonderful to see many of them.
Yeah.
And it's an exciting industry. And we need implementers, we need funders,
Yeah.
we can work with private businesses.
Yeah.
Collaboration is such a key part of solving these global issues.
Yeah, I love that, and I love how you're using the word partners. I use the word competitors. Partners is, I think, better when we talk about the spirit of the talk show. So I will go to a partner in crime, Jessica. How do you look at it from Hans Grohe's perspective?
I think actually we need to mention that they're both at the same time. So when we look into the core business, yes, Kohler and Hans Grohe, we are competitors. But when we look through the lenses of social innovation, social business, WASH, actually they are years ahead of us. There's a lot that we can learn from them. And we are just at the beginning of this journey. And it's fantastic. And I'm actually very thankful to have such reference points that we can learn from, that we can actually get inspiration. And in the industry, such as Kohler, but also Sato. I mean, Sato is doing an amazing job. And when you look outside of that, you know, the fact that you can get close to Juno Social Business, and get some guidance, get some help on that beyond a euro sign. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. And there is a lot of knowledge in the water community, for example. And this is what I appreciate. There is a genuine interest into collaborating for impact. Because at the end of the day, especially, for example, in the case of the markets of the future, it's very clear that the more companies that are looking into this, you can get tangible benefits like strengthening a supply chain.
Right.
And that would actually benefit
everybody. Yeah, yeah.
So it's this collective action.
Yeah, and I love how you sort of, because there's a certain openness in your answer to indeed receiving and learning from each other and from others. I think it requires a lot of leadership in order to have that attitude towards each other. So yeah, I wanted to just comment on that. David, are we seeing a trend forward here that could potentially maybe allude to some optimism? How do you look at sort of collaboration between corporations and how that ties into social innovation?
I mean, you mentioned it in the beginning, right? The word collaboration has been a lot around. So it is typically changing the world is a team sport, right? So it's not an individual hero's journey. So that's very important to understand. And we, as Juno Social Business, play actually a facilitating role there. Right? So there's always this quirkiness in the room when competitors on business side team up and do something together. We are there to take a bit of that out of the room because we just saw across the board that when people collaborate, and especially knowledgeable parties like this, there's just much higher impact that comes out of it at the end. So we encourage that a lot. And yeah, not more to say.
Yeah, thank you so much for saying that. I wrote it down. Changing the world is a team sport. I'm going to remember that. Yeah, not much more to add, but because we're also almost at the end of the talk show, but not before I want to ask you all a final question, and I was hoping that you could allude to this just briefly. But I mean, we're gathered here together in Stockholm, and also to the people watching online, they're here with us in spirit. And I mean, in a way, it's sort of like also the World Water Week is always like the embodiment of the global water community, right? From that perspective, there's something that each and every one of us can do to embody this sort of paradigm shift that we need. So my question to you is, what message do you really hope that people take away from this session when they go back to their everyday work? Maybe, Joseph, would you like to go first?
Yeah, happy to. So Kohler's mission is to provide more gracious living opportunities to people around the world, and I think that requires many different partners and collaborations, and this is a wonderful opportunity to start.
Yeah, so really working together, an open invite I hear as well.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. David?
I think I would like to say that social innovation makes sense for all the stakeholders in a company, including shareholders, and that the best way to get there is actually collaboration. I know it's very shallow to say that, but at the end, it's what needs to be said.
Oh, I don't think it's shallow. It might be cliche, but I always say with cliches, sometimes they are cliche because they're actually very fundamentally true. Exactly. So I will take that. Thank you so much. And Jessica?
And I think building on to that, it's what I've seen is that business does not necessarily speak development, and development doesn't speak business. So if we learn how to speak each other languages, we can learn, for example, business how to be more human, and development how to be more efficient and effective. And social business can actually build that bridge to bring these worlds together.
Right.
Really looking into what are the goals, the social and environmental goals, and just being supported by a business approach.
Yeah. I love that so much. I love how there's a red thread through all your answers, which is really about coming together, learning from each other. As you said, changing the world is a team sport. In fashion, in true fashion to that, you should be able to now see on the screen the QR codes to get into contact with these organizations, to see the work that they're doing. I mean, if there's anything good, then it's also to sort of find each other and reach out. So make sure to scan those now or forever hold your peace is what I always say. No, there's the World Wide Web, so you will be able to find them. For now, I really want to thank you so much for sharing this. Thank you for displaying your leadership in being here together on this stage. And to everybody here, thank you so much for tuning in.
Thank you.